Welcome back to the Owner's Seat podcast, where operators get the real truth about what's coming next and what it means for growth, margins, and survival. Today's guest is one of the rare people who sits at the intersection of fitness, payments, platforms, and my favorite, AI, and actually understands what scale does to strategy. Mo Iqbal is the Chief Strategy Officer at ABC Fitness, where he leads enterprise growth across M&A, mergers and acquisitions, strategic partnerships, innovation, and professional services, and serves on ABC's AI Council, shaping how AI gets integrated responsibly across the business. He's also the founder and chairman of SweatWorks, one of the industry's most recognized innovation partners, advising global brands and operators on growth, strategy, technology adoption, operational scaling, and complex deals. And here's why this matters for you, the owner, if you're a gym, studio, franchisor, franchisee, and wellness operator heading into 2026. Fitness is no longer a workout business. It's becoming the operating system for human health. And whoever owns the platform, the data layer, and or the behavioral loop wins in today's game. So today we're going to go direct on why scale changes everything and how ABC's ecosystem lens actually works, why AI is becoming the middleware of fitness behavior, where Pilates, that's hot, GLPs, peptides, recovery, and longevity are really going, what tech stack should look like when a one app for everything fails, and finally, how operators avoid becoming invisible to the systems recommending what members do next. Mo, I am so excited, so lucky to have you on. Welcome to the Owner's Seat podcast, sir.
I'm excited to be on. It's good to be on this side of the mic.
All right,
asking the questions.
I've been watching, as I mentioned, all of your shows, Matt as well. Shout outs to Matt. You guys do a phenomenal job. I can't imagine all the prep that goes into it, because the conversations that I get to hear, I do it during my workouts, on my drive. I'll sneak away sometimes from the kids, and I'll go listen to an episode real quick that I was really wanting to listen to. So y'all are doing a great job. So I hope I live up to your standards on this. So can't wait.
Well, I really appreciate that. It's interesting how many people listen to us during a workout. I typically have music on, so I guess we've got to pick up the beat and make it a bit more upbeat, and maybe even add some music into it.
I'm telling you, I get my best workouts with the lifts. I get my best lifts with lifts. I love it. So you've actually said this. I saw, and I love how active you are on LinkedIn, and you're very thoughtful about what you post on there. I read through it. I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on there. You've probably seen, I've commented on, and sometimes I want to give my thoughts on, and you always respond back. So I thank you for doing that, because I know you're very busy. I mean, you're not just across domestically here in the US. I see you everywhere. I mean, you're all around the globe. I don't know how you do it, but you've said that fitness is becoming the operating system for human health. Can you define what that means? And just for the operator listening, what changes in the business model when you speak of that?
Yeah, this is something that I really believe in. And I think this trend has been happening, and we've been coming at the convergence of fitness, wellness, and healthcare. So when I say operating system, I'm not talking about technology. Mm-hmm. I'm really talking about a coordination of behavior. So let me unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
Historically, over the last 40, 50 decades, fitness businesses have essentially sold access. So we think about this: sold access to space, access to equipment, like who's got the best equipment, classes, and a lot of that's driven by instructors and modalities. But access alone hasn't solved the real problem, which is consistency. So even today, and I think you did a post about this recently, but industry data shows that 50 to 60% of new members churn within the first 6 months.
Yes.
And fewer than 20% hit the CDC's recommended activity levels. An operating system does three things really well that I typically talk about and work through. The first thing it does is that it aggregates signals. So movement, recovery, sleep, nutrition, all the different components of wellness. It then interprets intent. So what does this person need to do today? Like when you go, I think you're a Lifetime member and you used to work at Lifetime, but
that's right.
What does Albert need to do today? Then the third, it routes action. Could be training, could be recovery, could be coach, rest, or something else. So what does this mean for operators? It means that the business model shifts from tracking check-ins to tracking adherence, from tracking attendance to tracking outcomes, from tracking your monthly dues to looking at lifetime value.
Love it.
And when we think about even our reporting capabilities and how we're building insights, that's where we're heading towards. So the gyms that win aren't the ones, as I'm thinking about this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it isn't the one that's going to have the gym 80 equipment. You need good equipment, by the way, but it's really the one that's going to own the behavioral loop. And that's what we've been talking about.
So as you dig in even deeper right now, as you think about, and you spend a lot of time with, I mean, even people probably watching right now, owners and franchisors and everyone within the ecosystem of fitness, wellness, wearables, all of it, right? You're very involved. I see that quite a bit. In those three tiers, where do you feel like there's still a big opportunity, even though you're out there educating, chatting with people? Where are you still seeing like, wow, we're really behind in this tier amongst the three that you just mentioned?
Well, the first I would say is that we have to change the model. And
Hmm.
that absolutely has to happen. And this goes from how we sell memberships to how we onboard people. I mean, just think about this for a minute.
Yeah.
Mark Mastrov, I would say, has been the godfather of our industry in many different ways. But one of the most important things that he did was to build a fantastic membership and sales system. And that worked for many, many decades. When you
Hmm.
came in, you did a club tour, you're signing someone to a recurring membership contract. It was an incredible model. But that's changed today. Let's think about
Right.
how discovery happens. Discovery happens from the web. Now discovery is happening through AI. Just this month, Google released something called the Universal Communication Protocol, or UCP. I'm not sure if you saw that or
I
not, but
saw that. Yeah.
essentially what that is that it's a way for you to build your product so that AI can understand what product or service you have. And not only that, but they've even now got the tools to help you sign up right through a ChatGPT prompt or a Gemini
Mhm.
prompt. So just think about that for a minute. In the last 40 years, membership cycles have changed from coming into a gym, giving them a tour, showing them everything, and operators are still thinking in that way, right? They
Right.
have membership desks. They take them on a club tour. They're showing them the recovery spaces and cryo and all of that. But the member today is a heck of a lot more sophisticated. They're using AI to identify what type of product is out there. They'll be able with this new protocol to be able to buy through AI. They might be already very high intent about their own wellness through a wearable or through, watching influencers and so on. They
Mm.
probably know more, like they're coming in with a lot of ownership about who they are and where they
Sure.
are today. So really it's about the things I talked about: consistency,
Hmm.
engagement. How do you, help with retention? And I think that's where that's the biggest shift for operators, because so many people that are in the industry today in 2026, literally grew up from the industry, starting out as maybe as a personal trainer. Eventually, even if you look at Brahm, the founder and CEO of Lifetime, how did he start? He was a trainer, right?
Yeah.
He's actually a janitor before that, but then he became a trainer and went up. So when you think about how a lot of us kind of grew up in the industry, myself included, it was from this bro culture in a lot of ways, or through
Yeah.
personal training, or through being a practitioner. But with today's AI driven world, a lot of that is changing.
It is. You bring up a couple influential leaders out here in our industry that we know and that we respect. Let's start with Mastrov. I mean, very exciting about the news at the time of this recording. About a couple of weeks ago, we hear almost the full circle coming about. And the last time I saw him was at Beyond Active, and he was pretty vocal, right? I loved it. It was great. No filter. I appreciate that about him. And now we're hearing how he and obviously with his partners are coming back to and acquiring 24 Hour Fitness. And so I'm curious because you mentioned some of the different things that he did back then that led to the success of 24 and some other brands that thereafter. I'm curious how he adjusts and where he takes it, because clearly the middle tier has been eaten alive, both from the HVLPs, EOS and Planet and Anytime, and a lot of the movement into the boutique space as, many people are starting to invest more, and you post a lot about this, invest more into the health and fitness and are willing to pay a premium because they prioritize it heavily, especially since the pandemic. But I'm curious your thoughts. What happens to 24 if you were to just, I don't know. If you were to say, well, maybe this should happen or this is what I see, what's your prediction?
I mean, look, I'm not on the inside with Mark and how he's thinking, but I do know this: he's incredibly smart, he's incredibly shrewd, and he's been close. He's got his ear to the ground, and he
Hmm.
knows that what got 24 to where it is, and ultimately him selling the company, is going to be very different than what it's going to take to revitalize an iconic brand and bring it to its past glory. If I'm every other operator where 24 is sitting right now and they're down the street from me, I would be worried. I'll be looking at my strategy because he's coming in with a blank canvas, and he's coming in with a ton of capital with Lone Star backing him.
Right.
And he's got some really bright minds working on revitalizing the brand.
Yeah, super exciting about that. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does and what the team does with him. And then you brought up Bahram Akradi, CEO, founder of Lifetime. Such an amazing story. And it's interesting. I was part of this process, 3-4 years ago, when he realized, you know what, the consumer is savvy. They're online. And, then the introduction of OpenAI and using it at that point as a searching tool, and now what it is today. And I love hearing what Google did, because now we're comboing what I call out there, and it's probably not the correct terms, but the AI SEO, right? And so Bahram saw that, as did the team, Jeff Sweefel and team, that we need to remove the desk, we need to remove the sales team, we need to create this amazing experience. They've done all the research, they know our pricing, they want to come in, and what we need to do, to your point, is that consistency piece, but get them embedded. How do you make them feel? It's like what Jobs did in the Apple stores. Everyone thought he was nuts, but it was something about that touch. When you're touching the product, you can see yourself using it and it being a part of your life. And I think that's what Lifetime has done so well. And you bring up AI as well. They've embedded Lacey. I'll tell you, I'm not a big fan of the name, but you know what? It's getting better and better. Every time I open that up on my app, I'm like, wow, who is behind all of it? They've obviously hired some smart people. They're doing a great job.
Well, we were part of that team. So I do have something to do with Lifetime and their AI, and I certainly have worked with that team on that particular project. But no, I agree. Lifetime's got their pulse, I think, on the right thing. Mm-hmm. They're innovative. Bahram, is, as you kind of called out, is always 2 to 5 to 10 steps ahead of anybody else out there. And I remember when he reached out to OpenAI, it was before anyone else was thinking about it, right? He knew that there's an opportunity here. And I think now they continue to exceed expectations. In the time, I was first a Lifetime member back in 2009. And at the time, I was also a member at Equinox. Kind of had these, if I was in the city, or if it was in my home in New Jersey. So I kind of needed both, because Equinox was not out in the burbs at the time. And you could just see and you knew that something even back then was brewing at Lifetime. That's something where they were close, they were obsessed with the member. Right. Where Equinox was obsessed with brand and lifestyle. And both things can be true, right? And they've both done a phenomenal job. But I think it's that obsession over the member and maximizing the time that member spends in the facility is what derived and extracted as much value and also brought value to the member. So I found myself getting my haircut, having my kids at camp there,
right,
eating sometimes breakfast, lunch, and dinner at Lifetime, because I'm able to also work. I mean, it's just, it became just, and a lot of people I know get on calls and I'm like, oh, they're at a Lifetime because now they have these co-work spaces. So I think they've really figured out they're going to continue to innovate and evolve.
Yeah, really excited about it. Well, let's switch gears into ABC, right? So you're serving, and the team's serving gyms, studios, and coaches. Can you walk me through, why does one ecosystem matter now? You posted about that, just creating an ecosystem. And I'm now starting to see other brands, actually, speaking of Lifetime, many that came from Lifetime that are building this moat, as I would call. They're trying to create something that is just hard to replicate. ABC has done this so well. I mean, it's very hard to compete with ABC. The amount of market share that you all have is super impressive the more I learn about it, Mo. But why didn't that matter so much 5 to 10 years ago? And why is it almost this goal that everyone's trying to achieve, yet very hard to do, but you've all figured it out?
Yeah, I think first, kudos to Tomer Bravo, Bill Davis, and the entire executive team at ABC, just bringing in, I would say, two types of leaders. One, those of us like myself who are very entrepreneurial and really they want to keep the innovation mindset going. But the second are also bringing in, pairing us up with leaders with operational excellence. So now you're able to have the entrepreneurial kind of engine going with the operational framework that could be successful in a company with nearly 3,000 people. But here's the thing why one ecosystem matters and why it's more relevant now compared to 5 or 10 years ago. 5 to 10 years ago, fitness tech optimized things like transactions. They optimized transactions, which meant signups, check-ins, payments. That was what they had to really solve for. Okay, can we take credit card and ACH, right? Can we bill at the right time so that we have a maximum chance of getting that approved?
Right.
That's not the issue today. It's an issue, but not as big of an issue. The issue today is fragmentation. Here's a stat. The average consumer now uses between 3 to 5 fitness or wellness apps.
It's overwhelming.
Over 40% of members have some sort of a wearable and at least one coaching or content platform. Wow. Right? And here's the thing, those systems don't talk. Do you know who does the integration? It's the member. It's the member that are opening up the different apps and trying to provide context. They're the glue. But guess what? Humans are terrible at integration. Like they're going to try their best, but
they're going to go haywire.
That's right.
Combust. Yeah.
And that's happened, right? You get overstressed and overwhelmed by data. So at ABC, for us, scale, our scale means that we see behavior across multiple modalities, not just in one box. So the fact that we're with coaches and students in big boxes, it matters because we look at the aggregate of that data, not just in silos. So the integrated ecosystem for us unlocks patchwork that regular stacks can't do, right? So if you think about all these different patchwork of stacks and some other companies that buy companies and they're not integrated, that's not what we believe in. We believe in a fully integrated solution. So here are like 3 things that we really try to focus on. The first one is identity continuity. So across like a Trainerize or, our Ignite platform, you have one member that has multiple touch points around coaching, around wearables, around prescriptive behavior. The second is behavioral memory, and we really take that to heart. What are your habits like? So your history informs our recommendations, and I think that's really important. Yeah. And then the third, I would say, is economic intelligence. When you think about pricing, dynamic pricing, staffing, peak staffing, utilization, maybe you want to charge a little bit less for non-peak hours. So to me, when you're trying to have 8 vendors. So from a consumer perspective, if you've got 5 apps, it's hard to integrate. From an operator perspective, they may have 8 to 12 systems that are all patchworked. It's really hard to build optimization. So what we have really focused on, and this is a journey. It's going to take us years, but we're really focused on ecosystems.
I want to talk to you about, you brought up a couple things, the financial aspect. Obviously, I spend a lot of time there. And so when you're talking about dynamic pricing and payments and all of that, I'm really excited about that. And I do have some questions around that. But the one that really piques some interest as well is the behavioral data. Because I remember the years of, big data. Big data is the thing. You need to aggregate and collect and sift through and figure out what are the trends and patterns of each individualized person or business or what have you. What are you seeing in that world? What is different about now? Is it just the power of AI is able to see it quicker and faster? What is it about behavioral data that's different today than it was, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago when it was really a big thing?
That's a big question. I feel like we could do an entire kind of podcast on that.
But I know we got 15 minutes.
but let me touch on AI. And how really AI is becoming the infrastructure layer, right? That is actually what's happening. So it kind of decides what decisions matter and what you should be. It provides context. So for example, the interface for a member is going to shift from what app should I open, right? Do I open, my content app? Do I open my recovery app? Into what should I do today? So AI really becomes this routing layer between intent and action, and that's what we're really driving towards.
Right.
But the key thing for that to work is that your business, typically doesn't generate clean or consistent signals. So if it doesn't do that, and if you're not collecting your data the right way, then AI can't really drive recommendations for your members, no matter how good of a brand name you are. So that's why for us, the behavioral data that you're talking about really has to be first double clicked on, do I have good data? Because if you don't have good data, then you're going to be driving the wrong types of decisions.
Right. Yeah, it's so good. The other thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and I'll tell you, I feel like I'm busier than ever before, and I'm in the professional services space, which I think it ran into a little bit of a lull. I feel like SaaS and platforms were really the big thing over the last 5, 6 years. And I'm starting to hear more back chatter around we are developing a professional services branch. I'm seeing this a lot. I'm curious, is ABC jumping in there? Because I am hearing, and I'll be transparent, some of your competitors are talking a lot about that. We're going to build out a professional services space. I'm seeing that across our industry. Is that something that's on the roadmap for ABC? If not already, where do you see that part of the ecosystem playing and what's happening? And I'm wondering, if is it because of this inability to adopt correctly or roll some of this tech and modern tech stack pieces out, projects out, and they're failing. So it's like, we need help. Is that what's going on here? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Look, in a lot of ways, we are all in the services business.
Mm,
And when it comes to professional services, look, there's a lot of different buckets here. The first I would say is transformation. So when you think about the things we've been discussing, operators, tech stacks, moving from one to the other, the convergence of many systems, that's going to take work.
yeah.
And I think in a lot of cases, if your platform can handle, even if you have a great new platform you want to move to, how do you go from, the system that you have today or your current system of record to a new one? So I think professional services has a role to play there. ABC has had professional services for actually more than a decade. We've got a very strong professional services organization. We might not be talking about it enough, but it's certainly there. There's almost nothing that we cannot do for an operator. So I would say that's the first one. The second one is, how do you build what is unique? So in a world where everyone's got ChatGPT, or to your point, like ABC is so prevalent throughout our industry and we've got this
Right.
dominant market share, we're trying to make avenues for personalization. It's almost like when you get a car, right? If you have, let's just say a Tesla Model Y, how do you
Mhm.
make it your own? Everyone can drive around in a Model Y, but you're going to make it personally your own. There's a lot of opportunity for personalization when you think about how a gym needs to view themselves. Now, that takes work. It takes coaching. And they might not have the skill set internally. So we're partnering with some really smart kind of outside agencies to
Mhm.
help gyms be able to do that.
Love it. You seem to be ahead of a lot of the hot trends. I'm telling you, I feel like your LinkedIn is like a litmus. Like, okay, where are things going? That's what I do that too. I'll be honest. I'm like, what is he looking at? Because it's coming. He's seeing it, and he's obviously talking about it or working on it. But Pilates, obviously, it was hot. I saw that you were really ahead of it and pushing it as well, challenging as you normally do, challenging the status quo in our industry and disrupting. I love that about you. GLPs, right? And now we're getting into the GLP pills. I'm just curious about your thoughts around Pilates and GLPs, peptides, and then anything else. What are you seeing that seems to be getting some momentum as aside from what we were talking about in tech and behavioral and payments, but anything else or any modalities that you're seeing, this is catching some good momentum?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I think first to speak on Pilates, Pilates has been a modality that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember, that there is this idea of exclusivity in our industry, and that applies to a lot of modalities. I would say CrossFit made Olympic lifting mainstream. It
Mm,
kind of took that exclusivity out of Olympic lifting. Strength, is something else that you used to only see guys in the strength area. Now you see a lot of women as well that understand the benefits of strength. A lot of that has been driven by awareness. Some by influencers, others because of a brand. Orange Theory, for instance, made HIIT training popular. Where Pilates really worked is because of consumer awareness and their awareness around well-being, their awareness around longevity, and them
mm,
understanding things like strength and mobility, and VO2 max
right.
and terms like time under tension really matter. And there's also a shift from a focus on aesthetics to focus on working towards longevity. People are
Right.
treating their health more like the 401k. You got to, and they understand
Live
that
well. Yeah.
live well, and the benefits compound over time.
Hmm.
And guess what? A byproduct of that, you also will end up looking good too.
Yeah.
From an operator perspective, I think the future, Well, typically, first, let me say that most operators are thinking about it like what you said in terms of what's the next trend, right? Is it Pilates? Is it GLP-1? Is it longevity? And how do I get ahead of that? And I think that might have been the case, boutique fitness, right? Going back 15 years ago. But the real shift is not really in categories. It's really in what I'm calling the decision-making power. We're moving into a world today, Albert, where wearables, AI co-pilots, healthcare platforms, they are increasingly telling consumers what to do next. Just think about Apple. I think you're on Apple, or Google or insurance companies. They're already testing recommendation engines that are tied to behaviors and outcomes. It is happening right now. So to me, if your business doesn't produce structured and credible signals, things like how frequently are you coming into the gym? What are you doing when you are at the actual gym? Are you focused on recovery? Do you understand recovery, or is it more of an Instagram moment that you're in a cryo chamber? You're taking the picture, right? Or is it more prescriptive? Then the systems can't see you. So I think the misconception is thinking that the relevance comes from being visible to being humans. And I think that's like, I know it's a really, really big idea, but being visible and understanding what someone is doing is probably one of the most important things you can do. So to me, I think there's a shift in that we're going to have all the modalities. Like we're going to have recovery, we're going to have the facilities, but the brands that are really going to win are the ones who are really invested in outcomes.
You're talking about infrastructure and outcomes.
That's right.
So to be proactively positioning yourself for the future, what I'm getting from you, Mo, and the owners that are listening to this is, what are you doing about your existing and future infrastructure so that whatever modality is going to be what it is, right? The Pilates of tomorrow or the GLPs of tomorrow, the foundation of it and how you succeed and how you make it work is this infrastructure and outcome piece, right? And back to maybe a lifetime example, being very obsessed about that, obsessed about your end user.
Absolutely correct. So in the tech world, we use a term called observability. And what that means is when we deploy an app or we're deploying a digital product, we've got observability on analytics that might cover traffic to the site, where they're coming from, who the cohorts are, server utilization, right? Is this thing going to crash? Are we scaling up? So we've got observability in the tech world. That now is coming into the fitness world, and it has to. And operators need to really invest in that. And observability is how do you carefully, because this is all very intimate data, understand where your member is today and get them to be better tomorrow. Like, what are you doing today? So when you open up your dashboard, how many gyms do you know today that will say new member signups, right? Failed credit cards. That is in the executive dashboard. I mean, you know this, you're in that world. And what I would challenge, folks like you and others to do is to say that your metrics, your KPIs for finances are going to be inherently tied to the outcomes of your members. And you should be tracking, like, is my member sleeping better because they've been a member of my gym for 6 months? Is my member stress level lower? Is your heart rate lower? Is your HRV higher? Like, I know it sounds wild, but when we could tie members to outcomes, the retention problem is going to be solved. The acquisition problem is going to be solved. And I believe you are going to have a healthier business.
That's a significant amount of value, both on both ends, right? The member and the business. And I could see that. Here's the thing. And I know you're a busy man, so I want to respect your time. I have 2 minutes or so here. I remember one of our last conversations, and I'm bringing this up because I respect you. And I said, let's just challenge it a little bit. I think there is, I agree with you in so many different ways, but I remember we chatted about one thing that I told you, it scared me a little bit, is in order for us to really beat this epidemic, if you want to call it, this issue of trying to get lifestyle changes, whether that's food, movement, or what have you, potentially the government is going to be involved in the health and wellness space to support us, right? And I love what I see the HFA doing. God, there's so many great people, you yourself included, that are out there in Washington and really just vouching and promoting what this should be and how it should be. I just get scared with the data piece. I get scared with whose hands the data gets involved, especially when it is so readily available, and it sounds like we need to position ourselves to have all of that data. And it's hyper personalized, individual, very sensitive data. It just scares me a little bit, and I just don't. I mean, maybe put me at ease or something, Mo, because I'm like, in order
Yeah.
to solve for this, we need to. But is that going to require us to? The privacy thing has been around for for a long time. That's been a point of contention with all of this, right? But now it's far more powerful, and we have access to it far quicker. And I think people are giving it up a lot easier. How do we protect against that when we're saying, this is health data, this is biomarkers, sleep, all of it that you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. So I appreciate that you are bringing it up,
Sure.
especially in a world where it's so easy to build an AI agent to ingest your data, and you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
I remember when apps and websites started to charge for services, and you're thinking that, well, this used to be free, or Facebook used to be
Uh-huh.
free, and I guess Facebook is still free. But when people understood how they monetize, how is Google a free tool, right?
Uh-huh.
What are they doing with their data? How is Instagram free? These applications take a ton of infrastructure to run. Now, not only are you paying for tools like your wearable or your gym or whatever your platform is, but running AI, this is not new news, is very expensive. It is very
Yes.
power hungry. So they're monetizing a lot of that by repackaging your data and to drive even more personalization. And unfortunately, the governance around that and around especially AI and training
Uh-huh.
models and making sure that there's no bias in it. AI is inherently biased because the data out there is just naturally biased from decades and decades of research and how we've been collecting it. I'd even say it's privilege bias because think about
Mm.
wearables. I mean, how many, what type of cohort can afford a
Consumer
wearable
demo.
or an Apple Watch? That is
Right.
not a true representation of people that actually need the help, and yet we're going to be driving outcomes based off that. And I think as it
Huh.
relates to privacy, we are in a time where I would say the tech world it came from this point of incredible relevance and sitting on top of the mountain and having so much trust and
Right.
driving and innovating so much of our lives to now where a lot of consumers are saying, I don't know if I trust tech. And there's this, movement to even be screen free, right?
Right.
I don't want
I'm
to,
going
I
off
don't
the
want a
grid. I'm
smartwatch.
getting off the
Yeah.
grid.
I mean, you hear that. You just
Yeah.
need to unplug. So it's tech is almost like a necessary evil. So I think consumers are
Mm.
really driving that. If I'm a consumer, if I'm an operator, I would say know who you're doing business with and do they have a lot to lose if they mess up. If they don't treat the data that I'm trusting them or my members' data that I'm trusting to a third party, do they have the right guardrails in place? I would ask the question. There is no such thing as a dumb question. You should never feel like you should be ashamed or oh, I'm not going to ask because I'm not a techie. No, you need to ask that. And if they can't explain something to you in simple terms,
Mhm.
in where the data is going and what's happening to it and how it's being used, I would look elsewhere.
Yeah. Such good feedback. I really appreciate that. And I lied. I have one more. Only I have to do this because it's been on my
Okay.
mind, Mo. And I'm like, usage based economy. And I have this theory that the consumer is going to really change. You shared a lot today around how things are changing in our industry. The model's changing. We're seeing it right in front of our face, and you're the pioneer helping push it there, disrupting it. I think the consumer is soon to change too. We called it gig economy before, even a shared economy. But I do think what we think of the day pass today will be very different of what we think of the day pass tomorrow. I've been trying and working on this at night around the consumer becoming I only pay when I go. Today, our industry is and I'm talking the brick and mortar space, our retail space. Today, our industry typically most members, 90+%, are paying a monthly membership regardless if they use it, show up or not. I think the consumer is gonna change this for us, and I'm still trying to figure out how businesses stay profitable, but I think what you're saying meshes really well is if you focus on their outcomes, if you focus on the consistency and experience and get obsessed about that, and you have the infrastructure so that you really know what's going on with them, I think it's easier to get them to return. But I do think the consumer is no longer going to do this 30 days and almost leak their money out if they don't show. The technology is so powerful that we can, I mean, you can close books in days now. You don't have to wait 15, 20, 30 days. I could take payment today. I can use it today and I only pay for what I use. Do you think that's a possibility?
It's already happening. It's already
Mm,
happening. In fact,
yeah.
there's an interesting brand out of Colombia called Neo U, and they are actually, it's an ABC Evo customer. It's our friends down in Brazil. They're doing that. They're doing dynamic
Wow.
pricing and on-demand pricing. And to your point, when you look at other categories like retail and apparel, like my wife has a subscription to something called Newly, and she basically gets fresh, new product every month
Mhm.
on an as-needed basis. If she likes it, she keeps it. She sends back what she doesn't want. She's paying a subscription for that. That is where the industry is going. We're seeing that in places like Singapore. So you are, and in some ways, it's happened with aggregators like a ClassPass or a
Right.
WellHub. You're going to see that from ABC as well, where
Exciting.
fractional membership is going to be. In fact, I think that without giving away too much, is less than 18 months away.
Amazing.
Why are we doing that? It's to your point. Consumers are going to want to go somewhere where they're extracting. It's got to be an exchange in value, right? And that could be
Right.
community. It could be because they're getting the best outcomes. Could be whatever that is. So this a la carte idea, and look, maybe also because a lot of us are now work from home. I pay a little bit less if I go at 3 in the afternoon. I'm going to block that out, and a lot of employers understand that
Hmm.
if I'm going to invest in and give permission to my employees to go work out, like we do at SweatWorks and at ABC, then we're going to have a more productive employee. I don't care if my team goes to work out at 3 in the afternoon. In fact, I encourage them to put on the calendar so everyone sees that they're committing to themselves to be better. And that shift is happening around the world. So what
So
if,
good.
you could do that, go at 3 and you're paying $2 to go to your Crunch Fitness instead of committing to it. And maybe tomorrow you're paying $10 to go to Orange Theory
Hmm.
just for one time. So I think that's happening. And I can tell you that certainly in the companies that I'm working in, we see that shift happening. So I think you are nailing it, Albert.
I, I'd love to talk more about that with you. And what I really see, what I'm excited about is you go to these conferences, these wellness and fitness conferences, and everyone says, I wish we collaborated more. I wish we helped each other more. I think this business model will even force that. You'll have local synthetic or artificial consolidation, maybe not under the same entity, but when you're down the street, let's figure out how to get them coming back within our city, our community ecosystem. I think that is going to be one of the ingredients to to the solve of our movement and weight and all of that mental health problems. We'll get people in our community working together. So Mo, this was so good. I really appreciate you taking the time, sir. Sorry for going over this. I just wanted to make sure I got those questions in just with your brain and with you and who you collaborate with. Just you're doing such a great job. Great job at ABC and SweatWorks and all the other places that you have your hands in. If people wanted to reach out to you or learn more about what you're up to, how could they connect with you?
I'm really on one platform, and that's LinkedIn. And people tell me I have to get on some others, but I just can't navigate and I don't have the time. So I'd say
Yeah,
reach out to me on LinkedIn. Maybe you could drop the link on this
will do.
podcast. And yeah, I try to get on that at least once a day.
So good. And if you're a fitness and wellness or franchisor, franchisee operator that wants better cash visibility, utilization, hey, let's talk about dynamic pricing and usage-based economies and economies of scale. Reach out to me at strategointel.com and I'll make sure to include that one as well. This has been another episode of The Owner Seat. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. As mentioned, episodes drop every Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. Central now. Mo, such a pleasure to spend time with you, and I can't wait to see you soon, sir. Thank you.
Likewise, Albert. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.